Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Dave's Math Channel. I'm your host, David Tare, and this is about 2 weeks into my new feature on the Math Lovers book. And there's 3 volumes of this book. I've made about maybe a dozen videos already on this series, so I'm not going to give you details about my series called the Math Lovers book, other than to say there's 3 volumes. They're each available either in paperback or on Kindle. I think you can buy them on Amazon.com. You can either search for my name, David Tare, or the Math Lovers book. You'll find either all 3 of these volumes on there, and you can buy them individually or the whole set. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. And I decided that I think on Saturdays I'm gonna do my biography feature. In the second volume, at the end of the second volume, I have 80 biographies of famous mathematicians throughout history, listed chronologically. And today I'm going to feature the second of those. I did Pythagoras last. I'm sure you guys have all heard of him. Very famous ancient Greek mathematician. Another famous ancient Greek mathematician, as a matter of fact, one of the guys from his school was this guy, Hippasus. And he lived, we don't know too much about him. We know that he lived during the 5th century BC, around the same time as Pythagoras and the Pythagorean school. And what we do know about him was that he was drowned at sea, supposedly, because he was able to prove that the square root of 2 was irrational. And this was a shock to the Pythagoreans because they didn't believe in the existence of irrational numbers. They thought every number was rational. In other words, every number could be written as a fraction. Now we know better. I mean, we know that there's a set of real numbers. There's even bigger sets than that, but the numbers usually learn about in school are real numbers, and we also know there's a lot of what are called irrational real numbers, like pi and e, and also square roots. And it's actually pretty easy to prove that the square root of 2 is irrational. I'm going to show you a simple proof. So here's a simple proof. This is what's called a proof by contradiction. So let's assume that the square root of 2 is rational. Well, if it's rational, then there have to exist positive integers p and q such that we can write the square root of 2 as a fraction p over q. And if that's the case, what we can do next is we can square both sides. So then we have p squared over q squared equals 2. And then if we multiply both sides by q squared, we see that p squared equals 2q squared. But then the problem is that would imply that p squared is even. But if p squared is even, that means p has to be even. And that's not possible because then q is also even, and this fraction p over q is not a reduced fraction. I forgot to mention that we should have written this as a reduced fraction. Every fraction, every rational number can be represented as a reduced fraction, where that means there's no common divisor in both the numerator and denominator. But we just showed that both p and q have to be even, and that's a contradiction. So that's what's called a proof by contradiction. And I think Hippasus gave us similar proof. I mean, a lot of this, we don't know details about Hippasus's real life, but I believe it is pretty well known that he did prove that the square root of 2 was irrational. And we also know that he got drowned at sea, but we don't know why he was drowned at sea. It was either because of this. Other sources say it was because another mathematical discovery he made. Namely, he figured out how to construct a dodecahedron, and a dodecahedron is one of the 5 what are called Euclidean solids, and there's only or platonic solids. I'm sorry. There's only 5 platonic solids. There's these are regular solids, kind of the 3-dimensional analog of regular polygons, and there's only 5 of them. And they're the tetrahedron, the cube, the octahedron, this guy, the dodecahedron, and the icosahedron. And I guess the Greeks didn't know about the dodecahedron. And I think there were a lot of other reasons they wanted to believe there were only 4. I think one of them was because they believed in 4 classical elements: air, water, fire, and earth. And this one didn't fit in with that scheme. So I guess they forbid knowledge of this 5th platonic solid, the dodecahedron. I think later they they ascribe this to the ether, or the fictitious substance making up the heavens. But anyway, at the time of Pythagoras, they didn't like public knowledge. And Pythagorean was a secret society anyway, so I guess a lot of the mathematical knowledge they stumbled across they considered forbidden, like the square root of 2 being irrational, also this dodecahedron for whatever reason. So it was either his construction of the dodecahedron or it was just proof that the square root of 2 is rational that got him killed, unfortunately. And I just want to say one more thing about this. Einstein had a very famous quote. You guys have probably heard it because it's been on posters. Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. And I think this is a case in point of that because he was great enough mathematician to do these two pretty amazing mathematical discoveries, and for that they had him killed. And he's not the only time that's happened. I mean, there have been a number of other famous, not just mathematicians, but intellectuals in general, who've either been killed or they've been, discredited or whatever, or, just victims of terrible injustice just because they discovered something new. So I think I should point that out. Anyway, I guess that concludes my feature on Hippasus. So thank you for watching. Long live math, and I'll see you guys next time.